to talk to us about fresh market nutrient management and irrigation in BC.
Okay, now people are getting lots of paper and food. Okay, let me start. See this way, I can't see this.
Well, yeah.
All right, I'll look there. Now I can go into depth of the things that I introduced earlier and Tom W. has introduced to you earlier. Go a little bit into depth of this whole thing. And I like this picture so much, it's in every single one of my shows today. What we're looking for, our goal for the whole thing is, I've got to stand over there, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'll just speak louder. We're looking for firm fruit, not the type of firm fruit that I get at the California days. But when I look at that, they always make fun of me because I say they're way too firm. We do, however, want firm fruit if we want to carry them anywhere. Local, fresh market, we don't care too much about it, but they can be as soft as, for instance, Rainier. Rainier is a very soft fruit, or hood, quite soft fruit. I'm trying to pronounce it the way they do in Washington, hood. Really easy out of my mouth. Shelf life, very important to us, of course, because simply we want to be able to put the product on the shelf, and we wish people would just rip it off the shelf, purchase it right away for about $5 a pound. We'd be all happy, but fact is that there will be a process that they will be on the shelf a little bit longer, and we need that shelf life. I do not ever want to pick up a box of strawberries, those clamshells or something like that, and look at the underside and it all looks like a mushroom farm. I don't want to ever see this, ever again. We do see it occasionally. We've gotten so much better, but I'd like that to be zero.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
Shelf life. You know, if there's a blueberry symposium, we'd be talking 2 weeks, 3 weeks. There's a strawberry symposium. Are we talking 3 days, or are we talking 5 or 7?
We're talking 3 days.
3 days, okay.
There's a difference between the shelf life on the actual shelf and the cooling and keeping it in cold storage. You can expand that. The Albion, we've taken them out 2 weeks after, and they were still okay to sell. I wouldn't want to sell that to anybody, but you know, they were still okay. That's a different thing you're talking about. But on the shelf for 3 days.
You're talking 3 days from field to consumer.
To consumer, okay, yes. Low susceptibility to diseases and pests, very clear. I don't need to tell you why, because we need to reduce our inputs on the chemical side too, and if we do need chemicals, we're always looking for green chemicals. You guys have the green registration through the EPA. We do not have that. We have something that's called something like a green registration. It doesn't work as far as I'm concerned. Here I'm safe to say it because there's nobody from our PMRA actually here. I have to be a little more careful when I give a talk in Canada on that. Low input costs, well, there comes a time where you have to actually throw money at something. And you have to throw it at the right time. And if you do that, let's say for weeds, you get the weeds small, you're going to save yourself an awful lot of money, like $900 an acre for hand weeding. So it's the timing of the inputs. And reducing your inputs goes right against what Tom W. was telling you earlier, putting up a structure, putting out plastic, having plastic beds, buying yourself your own bed shaper and that kind of stuff. However, You gotta figure this out before you do, and that's why Clark's calculations were extremely important to do. When somebody comes to me, I want to start growing strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, cranberries, potatoes, I don't care what. First, figure it out whether you can do it. And very important in that is what's your market? Market. We're looking at the market first, because growing strawberries, everybody can grow them, sort of. But selling them, not everybody can sell them. Believe me, you're ahead of us when it comes to the selling. Food safety, a big concern. On one of my trips to California, I saw a field that had all sorts of red flags in it that were circling certain areas, so I dared ask what that was. And it was actually areas where coyote went to do its business on the walkway, and that were circled because thou shalt not pick around that area. Very simple. Food safety is a big concern. Everybody wants 100% food safety, which is impossible, and we all know it, but we're striving toward that. We're a very bleached society with absolutely no resistance to anything anymore. Keep plants happy. If you keep your plants happy, and if you keep the root system happy, the crown area, and the top of the plant happy, the plant will respond in kind. Does anybody know what the SAR stands for? If you put another S on it, it's a disease, but I didn't bring it, okay? Systemically acquired resistance, heard of that? Okay, the plants have their own mechanisms whereby they can fend off diseases and pests. It sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't work, but needless to say, if your soil environment is healthy, your roots will be healthy, your plant will be healthy. The worst example I can give you is when an entire area of a field looks like it needs some extra water, and then somebody goes and actually turns the irrigation on. Probably it's just the opposite. There's probably something where there was too much water, in our area at least. There's too much water, the root system has been compromised. Now you gotta let this dry out and let the roots go back into that, maybe use a phosphite to help the roots rebuild, but don't keep going. So a healthy plant makes a plant that will defend itself. Optimizing marketable yield. Well, I talked about calcium earlier, and I'm going to talk about some more nutrients in a minute. Calcium goes along with the nitrogen. If we're pushing the nitrogen too much, calcium will be in deficiency, and I get malformed fruit, unmarketable fruit. And you can get that up to 67% in your field. You're not optimizing your marketable fruit. You want to get marketable fruit. The rest of the fruit, I don't care. There have been researchers throughout the world have been reported, oh, I can get 22 million pounds of this square foot of production, of this crop and that crop and the other crop. Well, that's all very fine. How much was actually marketable of that? Okay, 2 berries? All right, now I believe you. So it's very important to keep that in mind, that we're going to the marketable yield, not the overall yield. Okay, 2 different varieties, 2 different responses to viral disease. Yes, that's a historical picture of it. This is how big your fruit stand used to be. Can you imagine? You are showing new pictures?
Just one.
Okay, then people can compare. Okay, so we've got the variety hood over here, variety totem over here, and you can tell the difference between the 2. We completely abandoned hood. Pat's sitting in the back going, oh my God, what is he going to say about my baby? These students get very personal with their variety. We didn't grow hood in BC for the longest time, but recently people have been getting hood back in and grow them quite successfully. Because the diseases and the pests actually adapt to the varieties. The diseases and pests have now very successfully adopted the variety totem. They love it. So totem, as you see in the plant numbers, has gone down. It's now, what, 50 years old or something like that? Pew is now 80, so about 50.
72.
72?
1970.
1971. So it's an ancient variety now. It held out for the longest time. It's a remarkable variety, but it's now it looks just the other way around. In another session, I may say this is the hood and this is the totem. Now it would be. Now, nutrient basics, we talked about the pH, you asked the question. For most plants in the world, it's 6.5. That's an ideal pH. If you look at all the plants on the wet coast, I don't call it the west coast, it's really the wet coast. In BC and Washington, we have a pH, a natural pH that's more like 4.2 to 5.2, which is fantastic to grow blueberries and cranberries in, but not much else, especially not cold crops. You know what happens to cold crops if the pH is not high. There's a lovely disease called clubroot. EC, electric conductivity, we're watching that in the soil, that it doesn't get too high. That means we've got quite the salinity in our soil. We don't know actually from what that salinity is. It could be just us irrigating with salt water, which happens sometimes. When in a storm surge, the water rushes up the river. We can have salt water coming up underneath the fresh water about, 20 miles inland in the rivers, in the river system. So we have to watch that. Cation exchange capacity is the capacity of your soil to keep nutrients and hold them for the plant to take up. The plant can then exchange it at the root system, and you should know what kind of capacity your soils have. That is very important later to see whether you should give the fertilizer once when you're building beds, or twice, or you should irrigate it with the drip irrigation once a week. Okay, very important. The first time I tried out that plastic culture and the drip irrigation was in very light soil, and we divided what we were going to give the plants over the year by 16 different weeks. And every week we got that. And we stopped the nitrogen sometime in early August, just to make sure we don't have any hangover that would make the plants very soft to go into the winter, because we still do sometimes have real winters. We already had, oh God, I can't translate that, probably 20 degrees with easterly winds. I can't do Fahrenheit, I'm sorry. I grew up with Celsius, and I'm still in Celsius. Soil texture is the ingredients of the soil that make up the soil, whether you've got clay, silt, organic matter, sand, etc. That relates straight to what capacity your soil has to keep. The smaller the particle, the more keeping quality for the nutrients that soil actually has. And the soil structure is how the soil is friable, how it turns out. Does it make big lumps like that? I've seen people trying to push strawberry plants through the plastic when there were lumps underneath. Doesn't work. So I'm going to strengthen your argument, Tom, that really it should be smooth on the top. Otherwise the plastic will stretch funnily, and the plants, some of them are lower than the other ones. It's just one big mess. The 16 essential nutrients, my students, that's the first thing they have to memorize. This is something I use every day. You need to know every single one of those. The first three, we usually don't have in our fertilizer much, but they come from water and from CO2 from the air. So these ones are really relatively cheap. The other ones are very important. Somebody is adding nickel now into the mix too, but for me it's only 16. Make sure those are correct when you get a soil sample done or a sample of the leaf, a nice leaf sample. Make sure you have all those nutrients listed, because these are essential nutrients. If I take out, let's say, the boron, nothing will grow. Okay? Any one of those I take out, nothing will grow. They'll grow it at first until all the reserves of that particular nutrient are used up, and then the plant will die. So that's very, if I take one of your essential amino acids away from you, you'll also die shortly. Okay? Same thing. Sources of fertility, manure, compost, other organic sources, lots of them there, lots of things that people use. In general, when I talk with my students, everybody wants to grow organically. And then I have them define what that means, growing organically. Does that mean organophosphates? Organophosphates? No. So we have to be careful with the wording on these kind of things. But you all know what I'm talking about. I had one case where I visited a farm that had used only manure, and they had used it quite liberally, lots of manure in there, and strawberry planting was just fantastic. Lots of runners, absolutely not a single flower. Because when the plants are extremely happy, they're not going to make flowers and they're not going to make fruit. Okay? They're going to make runners, they grow vegetatively. They're perfectly happy to just grow vegetatively. Who wants to bother with flowering and all that bee stuff and all this kind of stuff? So you got to make sure you don't overdo it. Especially with manure, a lot of people overdo it. Manure, we do this just about every year. We show people how much to put on. You have a white sheet, and there's a speck here, a speck there, a speck there, and a speck there. And that's the appropriate amount of manure that should be going on. Anything more will cause problems later. Especially when the manure, which is, of course, fertilizer embedded in organic material, will take forever to actually be taken up. You still have a hangover of that. In September and October, the plants never go to sleep. And when they don't go to sleep, immediately you've got overwintering problems. Oops, did I say it all? Decomposition. Yeah, if you have an organic soil, decomposition of organic soil, especially combined with rains, will again bring up more nitrogen and grow. And of course, there's the fertilizer out of the bag. Make sure you test your soil first before you put anything on. Nutrient deficiencies are problems. They show up once in a while. Once you see them on the leaves, you see a reddish leaf. What does a red leaf mean in strawberries? It's just a red flag. It could be 10 million different things. There's a red flag. When you see red leaves in there, you know something's wrong. What is wrong? A red leaf won't show you that. Unless it's a really dark purple red, and then you know it's phosphorus. But anyway, cold problems, winter problems, our problems, and I think I can speak for Washington too. Our problems are not really so much with the cold itself, but with the water. That's why the raised beds. It's most of it is water. Our plants really normally survive the winters quite well. Yes, the California varieties too. Not a problem, but water, none of them survive it well. Waterlogging, salt problem, more of it. Misshapen berries, many different reasons. Could be insects feeding on the actual bloom, and when you have thrips on the day neutrals, for instance, you get this beautiful bronzing. You can sell the fruit as pre-bronzed. Nobody wants to buy it, of course, but problems. And that bronzing comes from different reasons, but we found it if we get rid of the thrips, we don't have the bronzing problem anymore. So that helped us. And spray damage, of course. In the plastic culture system, you still sometimes spray in between with something that burns the weeds off. Don't do that in the middle of the day when the wind's blowing at 50 miles an hour. Okay? I've seen it all. we've got the different symptoms of nutrient deficiency. They're a little bit dark, but you can still see something strong there. It's kind of beautiful, a little deficient. This is what a leaf looks like. It's just a partial leaf when you have extreme calcium deficiency. It starts cupping, and the new leaves that are coming out don't have calcium, so entire areas of the leaf don't actually develop. And it's really, really severe. There you've got some fruit. I'm not sure how well you see it, but it's malformed on the tip, and nobody wants to buy them. How much is perfect? Just a few numbers. If you want to get into the numbers, do a little search for our, you have your own guides here, but our guide is the BC Berry Production Guide for commercial growers. It's free, it's online, and all the numbers are there. I just took them from there. This is for short day varieties, that's just out from there. And again, that all depends on the soil test. The day neutral varieties, depending on what fruit loads you have, the fruit loads that were mentioned earlier as the basis for the calculations were a little bit on the high side. I would, especially when you're starting out, I would urge you to calculate about half of what was mentioned as a possible yield when you're starting out. When you're getting good at this, yes, you can achieve those yields. Might matter you didn't do that the first time when you did that, right? So I'm now upping the nitrogen, but I'm talking calcium nitrate, I'm talking calcium, I'm talking calcium, I'm talking calcium, together with the nitrogen, otherwise you will have no end of problems. The presentation, this is an ugly presentation. Looks very nice to us. For us, this is a good presentation. When you see the pictures from the field day in California, how they are picked, nicely set in there, you just want to take the whole flat with you. And we need to get there. Irrigation, how many minutes? 2 minutes? Okay. Irrigation, we've got to have a decent source. The pH of the water has to be right too. The water can't be 8 point whatever. It has to be reliable. Give the water to the roots, not overhead. I've talked about that in the earlier session. Fertigation, chemigation. You can include all sorts of stuff to the root system, even chemicals. You better read up on it, whether it's allowed, whether you can do it, what it is actually, because you're chemigating only the bed, not the whole area, so be careful with that. And fertigation and checking the fertilizer. All of us, I think, have a little bit of experience with that now. Plastic drainage, we talked about that earlier. The trickle tape, not in plastic. Here's my little system with the pressure reducer, just so I don't blow the whole system apart. That trickle tape, 10 psi is about it. Backflow preventers, so I'm not sucking potentially fertilizer or chemicals back into the water source. A fertilizer or chemical injector after that backflow preventer, and pressure gauge and filter and flow meter. The flow meter and the pressure gauge together tell me if there's a problem with the system to combine. And then it goes out to, and we've seen that slide prior, I've explained it there. And the irrigation is under the plastic here. I don't know how many of my growers went ahead and did the plastic and all of this, and there was no irrigation underneath. And I said, so how are you going to place the fertilizer next year? You know that emoticon? And if nothing else works, just get a highly overpaid guy to do the water.